Hello and welcome to another video. In today's episode we are continuing our deep dive into understanding the Arch Linux installation, and we are going to install the packages. Before we get into that, why don't you subscribe to this channel so you will be notified when the next video on Arch Linux and other Linux and free software related topics come up. And so let's get into our today's topic. So of course, as always, I have to tell you that if you are installing Arch Linux on your own system, be it an old computer, your main workstation, or a virtual machine, the only officially supported way is to follow this Arch Linux installation guide. So this time we are at the installation part at installing essential packages, basically after we selected the mirrors and etc. So with this out of the way, let's take a look at what we are going to take a look at. So we are right now at the step where we have already prepared everything on our system. Everything is ready basically. So we will need for you to install the essential packages. So basically you have to have partitioned your disk, formatted your partitions, mounted these file systems at the proper mount points in the system, and you should have already selected the mirrors from which you are going to install the packages. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I have this whole video series about all these steps one by one. We are going through them and trying to understand what actually each of these steps means. So when we install Arch Linux, we are basically telling Pacman, which is the package manager for Arch Linux, to download the packages from our mirrors that are selected on our mirror list and install it on our new system. So Pacman, generally when you use Pacman on an installed system, this package manager is used to keep your system up to date by always downloading the newest version of each software package and updating it. And this is also the software that you use to install new new packages into your system. But Pacman can also install these packages to any directory, not just the default position in the root. So you can just specify a different place for Pacman to download and or rather install these packages to. But that would be kind of complicated. So the Arch Linux installer provides the easier interface, the Pacstrap script, which is basically like pre-configuring Pacman for you and does some other stuff. So here let's first, I won't go into the Pacman script. First we will actually just take a look at how to use this command in a real situation, and while it's installing I will tell you more about the details of how this script works. So Pacstrap script basically requires two kinds of parameters: the mount point of the system to be installed and the packages to install. So if we are taking a cursory look at the install guide on the internet, it will basically show you this like you have by the installation guide guidance, you have mounted the file system to /mnt, and then base and Linux firmware are basically the bare minimum things you have to install. So what can we talk about? This is the packages to install. Let's talk about that. So of course the mount point can be anything, so this is very flexible in that way, but the standard way is always to mount at /mnt. So what do we need to install? We need base, which is a meta package, and so there is of course a page for that on the Arch Linux package database. It's a minimal package set to define a basic Arch Linux installation It contains like bash and the GNU core utilities, some file system stuff, GCC libraries, IP root, IP utils, so some networking stuff, sed, shadow, systemd. It contains systemd, which is the init system that is used in the system, and system daemon, basically 2-in-1, used in Arch Linux to handle services. And so this one should be installed on your Arch Linux system. That defines basically Arch Linux, these kind of configurations of the base package. You have to also install a Linux kernel and firmware. So I already made a video in which I tell you that there is a new installation procedure for Arch Linux. And so what has changed is that previously Linux and Linux firmware was all in this base meta package. Well, actually, base was not a meta package, it was a package group or something. But now base is a meta package which has, if you take another look here at the home page, then you will see that these are all listed as dependencies. So what actually happens is that this base does not contain anything, but it contains a lot of dependencies. So if you install base, then base will tell Pacman that, hey, you need to install all this stuff. And well, Pacman is also on the list. Yeah, so Pacman is one of the things that defines an Arch Linux installation as the package manager. So there's that. Okay, so now Linux kernel and the Linux firmware packages are not in the base, or not in the base group, or not dependencies of the base package. So that's why a lot of people who started installing Arch Linux based on older video guides could not get their system running because they just installed did this Pacstrap /mnt and then just base, and it did not contain a Linux kernel, so they could not boot the system. So you have to install that. But actually you don't have to install these two packages like Linux and Linux firmware. So Linux firmware is the firmware, so you should install that. But Linux, instead of Linux, you can basically install Linux hardened, which is a hardened kernel. You can install long-term the LTS kernel or the Zen kernel, and there are other ways, like you can compile your own kernel. Some of the kernel versions are in the Arch user repository, and so you can basically compile your own kernel based on some AUR package, or if you know what you're doing, you can do your own thing and install whichever kernel package you want. But yeah, be advised, you have to install a kernel package for things to work, unless if you are working in a container, which I don't know much about. So packages for file systems. So E2FS progs and DOSFS tools are going to be two file system user space utilities that you might need. So actually in the installation guide it says that just user space utilities for management of file systems, which this is the list of the file system that you might want to use, and these are the name of the packages for the user space utilities. So we have a FAT file system on our EFI partition, because we are working in a UEFI setting now. And we also have the ext4 as our main file system, so you will need E2FS progs for that, and you will need DOSFS tools for that. So if you are installing your system on LVM or RAID, then you might need MDADM for RAID and LVM2 for the LVM, the logical volume management stuff. So of course, if you are more interested in how to set these things up, you will have to refer to ArchWiki. So MDADM is the package that is for RAID, and the LVM2 package is for the logical volume manager stuff. I have never did any experiments with these, so you will have to refer to the ArchWiki. So specific firmware might be needed for your system. Software for networking like DHCP or Wi-Fi. So DHCP is like the dynamic IP address, which is usually if you have a router at your home, which I guess every first and second and third world people with internet connection at home might have a DHCP router. And Wi-Fi, you might need some packages for managing the Wi-Fi. That can be like the DHCP CD is the daemon contains the daemon for just getting the IP address. And in the networking wireless page, you can find some packages to manage the wireless stuff. And if you take a look at how we connect to the wireless network from the Arch ISO, then we use there this IWD stuff, the IWD suite. Text editors are also not included in the base package anymore. So I got a comment on my previous video which tells you about the change in the installation procedure, that now Nano is not working. Yeah, because you have to specifically install VI or Vim or Nano. So yeah, I'm a Vim guy, but there will be some instances like sudo will, I think, require VI to be installed or something. So maybe we just install both of them. It's not like they take up too much space on your hard drive. And then for the manuals, oh yeah, there is also a list of text editors, of course, in the Arch wiki. So these are basic console text editors you might want to get on your system right at the get-go. Or there are here the Emacs style text editors. Some people like Emacs, some people like the VI style text editors. So take your pick and install whichever text editor you would like to use while in the console. And then for manuals, you might want to install ManDB, ManPages, and TextInfo, which is kind of weird that is not included in the base, but maybe you install it for embedded system, which I don't know how many people use Arch Linux for that purpose. But there you wouldn't need manual pages. It is possible that you can save some space not having manuals. Okay, so next, let's go. And so I have fired up my virtual machine here already, and I can show you that I have my boot and the new root directory mounted at under mnt and mnt/boot. We can even just cd into /mnt and let's list out what's there. Yeah, it's an empty directory, so we can now install our packages. And I just left this pro tip here. So if you miss a package, you accidentally don't install some crucial package, like you miss the kernel or something, and your system doesn't boot or act weird, or you cannot connect to the internet due to some packages not being installed, then you can just boot into the live environment and use pacman-sysroot, or you can just chroot into your system. We will talk about chroot specifically in our next video. And so don't be worried. So you won't need to do the Pacstrap step again from the beginning. If you just miss one package, you will be able to correct your mistake later. So this is the command we will run in the VM. We will install base and all these other things there. So instead of not this one, instead let's just type in the command here, pacstrap /mnt, pacstrap/mnt base linux-firmware and e2 e2fs progs dos fs tools. Oh, why did I edit this twice? Anyway, vi vim man-db and man-pages and text info. So yeah, this will contain Linux firmware. Oh yeah, so this is my first mistake. So yeah, use this one as a reference, please. So we need to add dhcpcd for me here. dhcpcd. So we have base, Linux firmware, e2fs and dosfs tools, and vi and vim and mempages and dhcpcd. So let's refer back to here. So base package, kernel, file system tools, networking tool, and text editor and manuals. So this command here, no, this is not what you want here. This is the dhcpcd package, dhcpcd package for managing your or connecting to your dynamically given IP address router, or how should I put it nicely? Okay, so I just typed this in, so I will press enter, and they will creating install root /mnt, installing packages to mnt, synchronizing package database, and then, you know, if you ever used Arch Linux or watched someone use Arch Linux, it synchronized the package databases, listed all the packages, and just proceeded to install. Okay, so let's hide this away. Okay, so now it's time to take a look at what actually is the job of Pacstrap. What is Pacstrap? So it's basically a bash script that you can get on your system by installing the arch-install-script package, which is of course on the Arch ISO by default. And so, you know, it will, if you have it installed on your system, you can check like which Pacstrap, and it will tell you where this file is. And so if I ask pacman-qo and I put this switch Pacstrap between these backticks for the comment substitution, which will basically just get the output of which Pacstrap, and we'll use that output as like the input for the pacman-qo command, and it will tell us that this file is owned by the arch-install-scripts package, so we can check this one that way. And so if we have this install scripts package, you can install Arch Linux with Pacstrap from your working environment. You don't need to use the Arch ISO for that. So what is the job of Pacstrap? It's basically creating some obligatory directories. It sets up the new root of the new system. It copies the keyring and installs the packages specified. So this is of course done by pacman, invoking pacman there, and then it will copies the mirror list to the new system. So whenever you just change the mirror list the previous step, and so when you have the installed system, you don't have to worry about like setting up the mirror list again, because this mirror list will be copied. So if we take a look at the installation guide here, we can take a look at the Pacstrap script. This is what it is in the package itself, what is the source code, and this is going to be put in our system with some modifications. So this M4 include common will just some common functions that are used in this script and other scripts. So there are some common functions used in several scripts in this arch install scripts package. So we will just copy that one into each of these bash scripts. So we can take a look in gvim what exactly this Pacstrap script looks like, and this is better because we have now syntax highlighting. So I'm just gonna give you a short summary of this script because it's quite complicated, but if you are interested, just ask me in the comment and I will cover it in more detail in an upcoming video if there is any interest in it. It's an interesting script. So we assume a few things. So the script does not check if these are true. You have to make sure that these assumptions are valid when you run the script. So the partitioning and the formatting and the mounting of the partitions should have been done. Well, it says it's on MNT, but I think you can mount anywhere because you give Pacstrap in an option where you actually want to install where the new system is mounted. Network is functional, so Pacstrap does not check for network. The arguments passed to the script are valid pacman targets, so the script does not check whether you gave it any meaningful package names or just gobbledygook. And also it won't check if there is any valid mirror in the mirror list file. It is something that the user have to make sure before he runs the script. So that's why you always follow the Arch Linux wiki in the installation, because if you follow the installation guide, these assumptions will be true when you run the script. So there is this strange command in the beginning, this shopt. This is basically for the shell. So it can turn on or off some shell options. So it is going to be to enable the extended pattern matching features of the shell by this command. And so I told you that it will insert some extra functionality here. So when this is installed, so when your system has this Pacstrap script, then this will have all these things that are generated from this util Linux source. It will have some strange variables, some very interesting functions that will make it easy to output simple error messages, warnings, or just simple messages. And there is also this die function, which basically just prints out a message and then terminates the script. There are some other functions which are basically set for entering this new root of your the system to be created. So this kind of chroot setup and chroot tear down and this kind of functionalities are here. What else is there which is interesting? Okay, so this is where the script actually starts. So this will just define some variables like host cache is 0 and copy keyring is 1. So it uses like 0 if something should not be done, like the host cache is turned off, but copy keyring is turned on by default. And there is this pack mode variable that will basically just the pacman options that should be used. This is going to be dash capital S and lowercase y. There is this usage function that will basically output this short help text if needed, and so if there is no arguments given to this script, then it will just output this. This is what this if then block is responsible for. Here you check if the user ID is 0, so if this script is run as root or not. If it's not run as root, then it will notify that you need to be root and will exit the script. There is this getOpts part here, which so getOpts is also an interesting functionality. So here in the getOpts is basically helps you to organize the options and arguments that are given to your script, which is very interesting. So in this case you can give this kind of options like the capital C or lowercase c or capital G or lowercase I and stuff like that in any order, and in any way. So you can just say, let's see, like dash capital G dash lowercase I, or you can just say dash capital G and I. So you don't have to put like a dash before each of them. You can just group them together, and this getopt will help the writer of the script to handle that. So for example, if someone gives this script the lowercase c as an option, then the host cache will be turned to 1, or if it's lowercase I, the interactive variable will be turned to 1. If the capital G is given, then the copy keyring will turn to 0, and so on and so forth. It will remove all these parts from the list, or these options that were passed to the script and we already handled in this block here will be removed by this shift command. And if there is nothing that remains, then there is no root directory specified, so Pacstrap won't know where to install. If there is, then of course, so it will terminate the script, of course. And so here you can see, like, based on what kind of variables are set up, it will just make this pacman arguments, this pacman underscore args variable longer and longer. It will add more and more pacman switches to this variable based on what these other variables are set to. And then, well, it will check if the directory that you've given it as the new root is really a directory or not. It will create the obligatory directories like a pacman cache directory and some log directories like logging, some other like a dev run and etc/pacman.d directories, and they will also set the permissions properly. It also mounts the API file systems and copies the keyring if we want to, and then it will install the packages with pacman, but pacman will be run from this unshare command, so the environment for this shell won't be shared by the environment of pacman. It uses the -r switch for pacman to install all these packages, and this pacman args will contain all these arguments for pacman based on our variables there. And then it will copy the mirror list if we want to. So that's basically the short overview of this script, and so basically that is what Pacstrap does. And so I think our installation process has already finished, so let's take a look at that. We are in the /mnt directory here. Let me clear the screen and let's just list stuff. And you can see all these directories have been created, and well, as the packages were installed, there's also like the directories where the packages are installed into have also been created. So this concludes this video, and I hope I could give you a good overview of how this Pacstrap script works, what basically is the most important step of the Arch Linux installation, how it works. And so if you found this video useful and interesting, then give me a thumbs up. And of course, if you have any opinions on this, or you want to know more and you would like me to take a look at the install script in a little more detail, then just tell me in the comments. Or if you have any other ideas for videos, then just tell me about it. And so subscribe to this channel here for more content if you want to see more Linux, specifically Arch Linux tutorials and other free software related content. And so I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.